The arrival of my new neighbor. The year was 2095, and Earth had become an incredible fusion of both the familiar and the extraordinary. In cities like Neoterra, you could walk down a street where gleaming skyscrapers of glass and steel rose next to floating structures of unknown alien materials, their surfaces glinting under the sunlight as if woven from stardust. Humanity had entered a new era, one where they coexisted with beings from other worlds. Cultures mingled, technology advanced in unprecedented ways, and every corner of life felt like an adventure waiting to unfold. Jonathan Carter, a young architect with a keen eye for detail, stepped out of his apartment that morning, preoccupied with thoughts of a presentation he had to give. His neighborhood in Neoterra was a unique mix of Earth-inspired design and alien architecture, a place where extraordinary and ordinary blended seamlessly. As he locked his front door and took in the cool spring air, he allowed himself a rare moment to slow down. Work was always a flurry of projects and deadlines, yet this morning, a strange pull seemed to urge him to pay attention to his surroundings. As he walked toward his vehicle, a quiet, futuristic craft that glided along the street, he noticed something unusual about the house next door. It had been empty for weeks since the previous tenants moved away, but today a large, hovering moving pod was parked in front. Its smooth, metallic surface gleamed under the sun as various crates and containers floated in and out of the house on anti-gravity platforms. Jonathan stopped, watching curiously as the belongings drifted inside with a fluid grace he had come to recognize as alien technology. But what caught his attention most wasn't the moving pod or the crates. It was the figure beside them. She was tall, her skin a deep, shimmery lavender, and her long silver-streaked hair fell down her back like a waterfall of stars. Her clothes flowed as if alive, and she moved with a grace that seemed almost unnatural. Yet at that moment, she was struggling with one of the levitating boxes and was behaving erratically, wobbling and sparking as she tried to steady it. Without a second thought, Jonathan found himself stepping forward. "Excuse me," he called, keeping his tone friendly. "Do you need a hand?" The woman looked up, her silver eyes widening slightly at his offer. There was a brief moment of surprise before she smiled, though it was tinged with clear frustration. Her voice was soft but carried a musical lilt. "Yes, actually," she replied. "This grav box is supposed to adapt to Earth's gravity, but it's acting as if it's on a different planet entirely." Jonathan knelt beside the malfunctioning box, inspecting the control panel. "Sometimes these things lose calibration during transport," he explained, adjusting a few settings until the box stabilized and floated steadily. Standing up, he offered her a smile. "There you go, that should hold." Relief washed over her face as she exhaled. "Thank you," she said warmly. "I'm still adjusting to this technology, especially in a new place. I just arrived here from a planet called Thera. I'm Lyra, by the way." "Jonathan," he replied, extending a hand. "I live next door." Lyra took his hand, her grip gentle but firm. Her gaze held his for a moment longer than necessary, her silver eyes reflecting the sunlight in a way that made him feel like he was seeing stars. She smiled again, the corners of her lips curving in a way that made her look almost mischievous. "It's nice to meet you, Jonathan," she said, her tone warm and genuine. "I must admit, moving to a new planet has been more of a challenge than I expected. Even the coffee here is a mystery." Jonathan chuckled, intrigued by her openness. "Well, if you're interested, I could introduce you to Earth's version of coffee. It's a lot less sophisticated than I imagine Syrian beverages must be, but it'll give you a good energy boost." Lyra's eyes sparkled with amusement. "I'd love that," she replied, her voice carrying a hint of playfulness. "In fact, would you like to come in for a cup now? I've been experimenting with some Syrian blends, though they might be a bit different from what you're used to." Jonathan didn't need to be asked twice. There was a part of him, a curious, adventurous part, that was eager to see what kind of world lay behind her front door. "I'd be delighted," he said with a smile, feeling a strange warmth settle in his chest as she led him inside. Stepping into Allura's house was like stepping into another world. The air inside was cool, carrying a subtle scent of something floral yet unfamiliar, a fragrance that reminded Jonathan of fresh rain and open skies. The furniture seemed to float just above the ground, and the walls shimmered with colors that shifted as he moved, creating a feeling of being enveloped in a soft, luminous glow. Alien plants, with leaves that seemed to glow faintly, lined the edges of the room, adding an ethereal ambience. Allura gestured for him to take a seat, and he chose a floating chair that adjusted to his form as he sat. He couldn't help but be in awe of the design. The comfort and fluidity of the furniture made it feel like he was resting on a cloud. Allura moved with fluid grace around the kitchen area, handling sleek, unfamiliar devices with a practiced ease. She returned a few moments later with 2 cups of a shimmering beverage, the liquid within glowing faintly with a soft purplish hue. "Be careful," she warned playfully, handing him a cup. "It's strong." Jonathan took a cautious sip, and his eyes widened as the taste washed over him. It was rich and earthy, with hints of sweetness and a touch of something almost electric. The warmth spread through him, filling him with an energy that was unlike anything he had ever experienced. "This is incredible," he murmured, taking another sip. "I've never tasted anything like it." Allura chuckled, clearly pleased. "It's brewed from Syrian nectar crystals," she explained. "They're a natural energy source on my planet, used by Syrians to stay awake during our long nights." Their conversation flowed naturally from there. Jonathan found himself captivated not just by the novelty of her world, but by Allura herself. She was an exobiologist, she told him, here on Earth to study the planet's ecosystems, and her fascination with Earth's oceans and forests was contagious. Jonathan shared stories from his work as an architect, speaking about his love for designing spaces that harmonized with the environment. As they spoke, Jonathan felt an unexpected connection with her. There was a calmness to Allura, a quiet confidence that made him feel at ease. For the first time in a long time, he felt as if he could truly be himself. It was as if they had known each other far longer than just an hour. Eventually, the responsibilities of the day tugged at him, reminding him that he had work waiting. With a reluctant smile, he set his empty cup down and rose to leave. Allura walked him to the door, and there was a moment, a brief, lingering pause, where their eyes met, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. "If you ever need help with anything, don't hesitate to ask," Jonathan offered, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. Allura's smile was soft and sincere. "I might just take you up on that," she replied, her voice gentle. "Thank you, Jonathan." As he stepped out into the sunlight, he felt a curious sense of certainty. This was no ordinary encounter. There was something about Allura, something beyond her alien origins, that intrigued him in ways he hadn't expected. Glancing back at her house one last time, he knew that whatever had begun today was far from over. As he walked down the street, Jonathan couldn't shake the feeling that his life had shifted ever so slightly towards something unknown, something extraordinary. Strange happenings in the garden. The following days passed with an almost tangible anticipation. Jonathan couldn't deny the pull he felt toward his new neighbor. His thoughts frequently drifted to Allura and the enchanting encounter they'd shared over that shimmering cup of Syrian coffee. He'd catch himself glancing at her house in the mornings, hoping for another chance meeting or a fleeting glimpse of her ethereal presence. On a particularly cool morning, as Jonathan headed out for a routine jog, he noticed Allura kneeling in her front garden. Her dark hair, streaked with silver, cascaded down her back, shimmering under the early sun. She seemed focused, tending carefully to the plants she had lined along her walkway, plants that were unlike anything found on Earth. Curious, Jonathan approached, noticing how the flower's delicate petals seemed to glow faintly, shifting colors from lavender to soft blue as the light touched them. As he drew closer, Allura looked up, her silver eyes brightening at the sight of him. "Good morning, Jonathan," she greeted warmly, brushing a hand over her knee to clear the earth. "You're up early." Jonathan grinned, nodding at the plants around her. Couldn't help but notice your garden. It's not something you see every day. She chuckled, clearly pleased. These are some of my favorites from Syra, she said, motioning to the flowers, their colors shifting subtly. I brought their seeds with me when I moved. I wasn't sure if they'd thrive here, but they seem to be adapting well to Earth's environment. Jonathan crouched beside one of the plants, reaching out to touch a petal. The bloom pulsed faintly as his fingers brushed it, deepening its color to a vivid blue. Startled, he drew back, looking at Elira in surprise. She laughed softly, her voice like the gentle hum of wind chimes. They respond to energy, she explained, her gaze drifting from the flower to him. On Syra, we believe that all things, living or inanimate, share an energy bond. These plants are particularly sensitive to emotion. They mirror the harmony or tension of their surroundings. Fascinated, Jonathan extended his hand once more, this time with more intention. He let his fingers rest lightly against the flower's petal, feeling a subtle warmth. The plant responded by intensifying its glow, the color deepening until it looked almost electric. Elira watched him with a gentle smile. They sense calmness in you, she observed, her voice soft. They're reflecting that back to you. Jonathan looked up at her, feeling an unexpected warmth settle in his chest. I've never experienced anything like this, he admitted, unable to tear his gaze away from the shimmering flowers. It's incredible. Elira's expression softened as she knelt beside him, her hands moving gently over the blooms. Gardening has always been a form of meditation for me, she said, her tone thoughtful. No matter how far I travel, caring for these plants reminds me of home. It's a way to stay connected, even when I'm so far from everything familiar. They stayed there, side by side in comfortable silence, watching the flowers respond to the gentle touch of their hands. Jonathan couldn't help but feel a sense of peace in Elira's presence. Her world was so different from his, yet her words resonated deeply within him. Earth, with all its noise and chaos, rarely offered such moments of tranquility. After a while, Elira broke the silence. Would you like to learn more about them? She asked, tilting her head with a curious smile. I could show you how to care for them, if you're interested. Jonathan didn't hesitate. I'd love that, he replied, his grin broadening. I've never had much of a green thumb, but I'm willing to give it a try. She rose gracefully, motioning for him to follow her deeper into the garden. As they walked, Elira explained the unique properties of each plant, her voice carrying a warmth and passion that made the lessons feel less like learning and more like discovering something wondrous. Some flowers were luminescent, glowing more brightly as they absorbed energy. Others had leaves that shimmered with a metallic sheen, their surfaces cool to the touch. Jonathan listened intently, captivated by the world she described, a world where even the simplest plant held secrets beyond imagination. They knelt together by a particularly large bloom with petals that shifted colors in iridescent shades of violet and teal. Allure instructed him to close his eyes and focus on his breathing, to feel the energy of the earth beneath him and the air around him. Jonathan did as she asked, taking a slow breath and letting the noise of the city fade away. All that remained was the gentle hum of the plants and the warmth of her presence beside him. Now, reach out, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Let the plants sense you. He extended his hand, feeling a subtle tingling warmth as his fingers hovered near the flower's petals. When he opened his eyes, he was greeted by the sight of the flower glowing more brightly than before, its colors intensifying in response to his touch. Elira watched him, her expression one of quiet satisfaction. You're a natural, she remarked with a smile. Most people find it difficult to connect on their first try. Jonathan straightened, chuckling softly. Guess I have you to thank for that, he replied, brushing the dirt from his hands. You make it easy to feel at peace. They shared a brief, lingering glance, and Jonathan felt a pull in his chest, a warmth that seemed to deepen with each encounter. There was something unspoken between them, something that went beyond mere curiosity or friendship. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the garden, Jonathan realized that time had slipped away from him. He checked his watch with a sheepish smile. "I should probably get going," he said, though he felt reluctant to leave. Allure nodded, her own smile tinged with something unspoken. "Thank you for spending the morning with me," she said, her voice soft. "It's been wonderful." Jonathan hesitated for a moment, tempted to stay, to let the quiet beauty of her garden hold him there just a little longer. But he knew he had obligations waiting, responsibilities he couldn't ignore. "I'd love to come back," he said, his voice sincere. "If you don't mind a neighbor intruding on your garden every now and then." Allure's eyes softened, and her smile deepened. "I'd like that," she replied, her tone warm and genuine. "You're always welcome here, Jonathan." As he walked away, he felt a sense of lightness that he couldn't quite explain, a feeling of having stepped into something new and uncharted. His thoughts lingered on Allure and the quiet connection they shared. It was as though her garden had become a sanctuary, a place where two vastly different worlds could find harmony in each other's presence. Over the following weeks, Jonathan found himself returning to Allure's garden time and again. They'd sit among the glowing blooms, talking about their worlds, their lives and their dreams. The more time he spent with her, the more he realized that she was unlike anyone he had ever met, not because she was from another planet, but because she saw the world with a perspective that felt both foreign and familiar. One evening, as the sun set and cast a warm golden glow over the city, Jonathan sat beside Allure on a stone bench in the heart of her garden. The flowers around them glowed softly in the dimming light, their colors reflecting the calmness of the evening. Allure leaned back, her gaze drifting to the stars that had begun to dot the sky. "Do you ever wonder what's out there?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Beyond the stars, beyond all the worlds we know." Jonathan nodded, following her gaze. "All the time," he replied. "It's part of what drew me to architecture, wanting to build things that might outlast me, things that could stand the test of time and tell a story." Allure looked at him, her eyes shining with an emotion he couldn't quite name. "That's beautiful," she murmured. "In Syrian culture, we believe that every creation, every connection has its own energy. Buildings, gardens, friendships, they all carry a piece of us, of our intentions." For a long, quiet moment, they sat in silence, each lost in their thoughts. Jonathan felt a surge of something profound, a feeling that seemed to fill every corner of his being. He reached out, letting his hand rest gently on hers. She didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers intertwined with his, her touch cool and comforting. They sat like that as the night deepened, their connection growing stronger with each passing moment. Jonathan didn't know where this journey with Allure would lead, but in that moment, surrounded by the glowing blooms of her alien garden, he knew he was exactly where he was meant to be. Uncovering secrets of the stars. A month had passed since Jonathan and Allure's quiet mornings in her garden began to feel like a treasured ritual. As he stepped into her otherworldly sanctuary each time, he found himself leaving behind the pressures of work and the hustle of Neoterra. Their conversations grew deeper, weaving a tapestry of understanding between them that transcended both their worlds. One cool evening, Allure invited Jonathan over with an unusual request. "I want to show you something from HFY," she had said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Jonathan arrived at her door just after sunset, the evening air crisp and filled with a sense of anticipation. Allure greeted him warmly, her dark hair flowing over her shoulders in silken waves, and led him through her house and into a quiet room he hadn't seen before. The walls were translucent, shimmering softly like water under moonlight, and the floor was lined with intricate patterns that glowed faintly. "I call this my star chamber," Allure explained, her voice hushed, reverent. "On Syra, it's common for homes to have rooms like these, spaces designed for connecting with the energies of our universe. I've adapted mine to Earth's skies." Jonathan glanced around, his curiosity piqued. "It's beautiful. I've never seen anything like it. But why adapt it to Earth?" Allure gestured for him to sit on one of the floating cushions, and she settled gracefully across from him, her gaze warm and inviting. "The stars," she began, a touch of wonder in her voice, "are the only constant, no matter which planet you're on. On Syra, we have a tradition of communing with the stars to seek guidance, to feel connected with the vastness of existence." As she spoke, she reached toward a console embedded in the floor, tapping a series of softly glowing symbols. The ceiling above them flickered, and suddenly, the room transformed. The walls dimmed to a deep indigo, and stars appeared overhead, glimmering like scattered diamonds across an endless sky. Jonathan looked up, amazed, as constellations he'd never seen traced faintly glowing paths. This is incredible, Elira," he breathed, feeling as though he was standing under a night sky, not just of Earth, but of Tyra itself. She smiled, a hint of pride in her eyes. "These constellations are the ones I grew up with, the ones I would watch each night back home. They remind me of where I came from and where I still want to go. But now that I'm here, I wanted to merge my sky with Earth's. That's what you're seeing, a fusion of Syrian constellations and Earth's. Two worlds joined in one sky." They sat in silence for a moment, the stars above them casting a soft glow across the room. Jonathan felt a connection to Elira that went beyond words, a feeling that only deepened with every visit, every story she shared of her world. Here in her star chamber, he felt not only close to her, but somehow also part of something grander, something vast and mysterious. Elira broke the silence, her voice soft yet filled with a quiet intensity. "Do you ever think about exploring the stars, Jonathan, traveling beyond Earth?" He looked at her, surprised by the question, but his answer came easily. "I have," he admitted, his tone contemplative. "I always imagined there would be so much to learn out there, that maybe we could understand our place in the universe a little better. But seeing the stars this way, it's hard to believe how much we don't know." She nodded, her gaze distant, lost among the stars. "Back on Syra, the stars are seen as guides, symbols of purpose and connection. Each one holds a memory, a fragment of our history. For us, the stars are a way to find ourselves amid the vastness. I've often wondered if Earth has similar beliefs." Jonathan thought for a moment. "Well, we've always looked up to the stars. They've guided our ancestors, inspired our myths and dreams, and now they're the next frontier we hope to reach. I think that in a way, they connect us all, whether you're from Earth or Extera." Elira's gaze softened, her eyes reflecting the gentle light of the stars above. "Maybe that's why I feel so drawn to this place," she murmured. "Despite all the differences, there's something familiar here, something that feels like home." They sat there, watching the stars, until Elira spoke again, her tone filled with gentle curiosity. "Would you like to learn Exerian meditation technique? It's a practice we use to connect more deeply with the energy of the stars. I think it might resonate with you." Jonathan's curiosity flared. "I'd love to," he replied, genuinely intrigued. Elira's eyes sparkled with approval. She positioned herself in a comfortable seated posture, gesturing for Jonathan to do the same. "Close your eyes," she instructed softly, "and focus on your breathing. Imagine that with every inhale, you're drawing in the energy of the stars above you. Feel it filling your mind, your body, grounding you." He did as she asked, taking a deep, steady breath. As he exhaled, he felt a subtle calm settle over him, a peace that felt expansive, almost boundless. Elira's voice guided him gently through the meditation, her words soothing, drawing his mind into a state of openness. He felt as though he were floating, weightless, held by the vastness of the cosmos. After a few moments, she invited him to open his eyes. Jonathan blinked, adjusting to the soft starlight in the room, and met her gaze. There was a sense of calm in her eyes, a warmth that filled him with a quiet happiness. "That was remarkable," he murmured, still feeling the effects of the meditation. "I've never felt so connected." Elira's smile was radiant. "I thought you might enjoy it. It's a way of grounding ourselves while still reaching beyond, a reminder of how we're all connected through the stars." As they lingered in the star chamber, their conversation turned to lighter topics: Earth's culture, Osiris festivals, and the small, funny differences that existed between their worlds. Jonathan found himself laughing at Elira's stories, picturing her navigating Earth's quirks with that same serene grace that defined her. In the midst of their laughter, a thought struck him, and he grew quiet, studying her expression. "Do you ever get homesick?" he asked gently. Elira paused, her smile fading slightly. She took a breath, her gaze drifting back to the stars above. "Sometimes," she admitted, her voice soft. "I miss the familiarity, the comfort of knowing my place in the world. Vaxilura has a peace to it, a sense of unity with the environment that I haven't found here. But," she added, her gaze meeting his, "I think I found something here that I wasn't expecting, a different kind of connection." The quiet sincerity in her words made Jonathan's chest tighten. He reached out, his hand gently covering hers, and she didn't pull away. They sat in silence, his fingers entwined with hers, the warmth of their connection grounding him in a way he hadn't felt in years. After a few moments, Elira spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I came to Earth to study its ecosystems, to learn about the ways life thrives in different forms. But now I'm learning so much more than I expected." Jonathan felt his heart race, a sense of excitement and warmth filling him as he looked at her. "I'm glad you're here, Elira," he replied, his voice sincere. "You've changed how I see the world, how I see the universe. I never imagined I'd find someone who could make me feel like this." Elira's eyes shone with emotion, her gaze unwavering. "And I never imagined I'd find a place that felt like this," she murmured, her voice filled with wonder. The moments stretched on, neither of them willing to break the silence, each lost in the intensity of the connection they had found in one another. Finally, Elira leaned closer, her forehead resting lightly against his. The quiet intimacy of the gesture spoke volumes, and Jonathan felt his heart swell, a quiet joy spreading through him. They remained that way for a while, the soft glow of the stars above illuminating their faces. When they finally parted, a quiet understanding lingered between them, a shared certainty that whatever path lay ahead, they would walk it together, united by the stars. As Jonathan left her star chamber that night, he felt as though he were leaving a piece of himself behind, a piece that would forever be connected to her and the mysteries of her world. And for the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone in his dreams of exploring the universe. With Elira by his side, the stars no longer felt so distant, and the universe itself seemed within reach. The mystery of the crystal sea. Over the following weeks, Jonathan's life intertwined more deeply with Elira's world. Their days in the garden grew into nights spent stargazing in the star chamber, where they lost themselves in discussions of Earth's history, Cyrus legends, and the mysteries of the universe. Jonathan found himself eagerly looking forward to every moment with her. But one evening, as they relaxed in the gentle glow of her floating plants, Elira shared something that shifted their conversations from the stars to something closer to home. "I want to show you something special," she began, her silver eyes sparkling with an excitement that made Jonathan's heart race. "Something from Xyra, but a version of it exists here on Earth." Intrigued, Jonathan leaned forward. "A version of Xyra on Earth? What do you mean?" She smiled, her gaze distant, as though she could see something far beyond the room. "In my research, I discovered a hidden place on Earth that mirrors one of Xyra's most cherished locations, the Crystal Sea. It's an ancient and rare phenomenon, a place where the energies of our universe are unusually strong. I think I found Earth's version of it." The name alone sent a shiver through Jonathan. The Crystal Sea sounded like something out of a legend, a place untouched and sacred. "Where is it?" Elira's smile deepened. "It's about an hour's flight from here. I've arranged for us to visit tomorrow, if you're interested. I believe it's a place that holds answers, and maybe even a few mysteries of its own." Jonathan didn't need a second to decide. "Of course, I'd love to go." The following morning, they set out in Elira's transport craft. Unlike the sleek, low hovering Earth vehicles, her vessel was built for flight, gliding gracefully through the air. The interior was both luxurious and minimal, with seats that conformed to their forms and walls, lined with panels that displayed live environmental data from the outside. Jonathan felt the thrill of flying in a craft made from alien technology, his anticipation growing with every mile. They traveled over stretches of dense forest, shimmering rivers, and mountains dusted with early snow, eventually descending over an untouched valley. From above, Jonathan could see a lake, its waters crystalline and still, reflecting the morning sun in soft hues of violet and blue. As they landed, the energy of the place seemed to envelop them. Allure was the first to step out, her expression reverent as she took in the landscape. Jonathan followed, his breath catching as he felt an unusual calm settle over him. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of pine and something else, something ancient and electric. "This is it," Allure murmured, her gaze fixed on the lake, Earth's version of the crystal sea. They walked in silence to the lake's edge. As they neared, Jonathan noticed the water wasn't just reflecting the sky, but seemed to pulse with an inner light. Tiny, crystalline particles sparkled beneath the surface, shifting colors as they moved, like a million tiny stars suspended in the water. Jonathan knelt by the shore, entranced. How is this possible? Allure crouched beside him, her fingers skimming the surface. The lake's minerals interact with Earth's natural energy fields in a way that resembles Axura's crystal sea. In places like this, the veil between worlds grows thin, and the energy becomes almost alive. She reached out, her hand hovering above the water. "On Syra, we believe that places like the crystal sea are portals, points of connection between worlds. It's where we go to meditate, to seek wisdom and healing. This lake may be Earth's answer to the mysteries of my world." Curious, Jonathan followed her lead, holding his hand just above the water's surface. Instantly, he felt a tingling sensation travel up his arm, filling him with a gentle warmth that spread through his chest. The lake's energy was palpable, a subtle but unmistakable pulse that mirrored the beat of his own heart. "It's incredible," he whispered, his gaze shifting to Allure. "I've never felt anything like this." Allure's gaze was soft as she watched him, a quiet awe reflecting in her silver eyes. "This lake holds memories, Jonathan, fragments of time, life, and emotion. It's said that those who are open to its energy can catch glimpses of these memories, moments that are both ancient and new." Jonathan stared into the crystalline depths, intrigued. "Have you ever seen anything like that? These memories?" Allure nodded slowly. "Once, as a child, I saw something, a vision of a time long ago. But it wasn't just like watching a memory, it felt as if I were living it. I was someone else in another time." Jonathan felt a chill despite the warmth of the lake's energy. "Are you saying this lake could let us experience something like that?" Allure met his gaze, a hint of excitement mixed with caution. "It's possible, if we're open to it." He took a breath, feeling a surge of curiosity and courage. "Then let's try." They sat together by the shore, hands just above the water, as Allure led him through the Syrian meditation she'd taught him in her star chamber. She encouraged him to focus on the lake's energy, to let it fill him completely. Jonathan closed his eyes, allowing himself to drift into a state of openness, his awareness melding with the rhythmic pulse of the lake. At first, he felt only warmth, a subtle vibration coursing through him. But then, images began to form behind his closed eyelids, vivid, fleeting visions that felt both familiar and foreign. He saw a vast ocean, its waves crashing against crystalline shores under twin suns. Figures moved along the coast, their forms graceful and tall, with skin shimmering in shades of lavender and blue. The scene shifted, and he found himself in a lush forest, surrounded by enormous trees that glowed faintly in the dim light. He was walking, his hands outstretched, feeling the rough bark of a tree and the soft underbrush beneath his feet. Suddenly, he was back on the lake's shore, his hands still hovering above the water. His eyes snapped open, and he turned to find Elira staring at him, her expression filled with wonder. "You saw something," she whispered, a note of excitement in her voice. Jonathan nodded, still trying to process the experience. "I was somewhere else. A beach with twin suns, a forest where the trees glowed. It felt real, like I was actually there." Elira's gaze was soft, understanding. "Those were places on Axera. You were seeing memories of my world, fragments that the lake's energy allowed you to access." He took a deep breath, feeling a strange sense of loss and awe all at once. "Your world is beautiful, Elira. I felt like I belonged there, like I was home." Her hand found his, her touch gentle but grounding. "The crystal sea can be a bridge, Jonathan, between your world and mine, between the familiar and the unknown. Maybe there's a part of you that's connected to Axera, just as I feel drawn to Earth." They sat in silence, each lost in the memory of what they had seen, until the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the lake. The crystalline particles in the water glowed faintly, mirroring the stars that began to appear in the sky above. Eventually, Elira spoke, her voice quiet but resolute. "Jonathan, I think this place is meant for something more. It's not just a reflection of Axera's crystal sea, it's a link. I believe it's showing us that our worlds were always meant to connect." He turned to her, his chest tightening at the emotion in her voice. "Elira, do you think there's more out there? Other places like this, connections that go beyond what we know?" Her gaze was unwavering. "I believe so. And I think that together we can uncover them. We can explore these mysteries, find the bridges that connect our worlds. There's so much we don't understand, but I know one thing, this journey feels right." In that moment, Jonathan knew he would follow her anywhere. She had opened his eyes to a universe beyond his wildest dreams, a universe filled with possibility, with beauty, with connection. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with mysteries and dangers, but as long as Elira was by his side, he felt ready to face whatever came. They sat there, hand in hand, the crystalline lake glowing softly before them, and gazed out at the horizon. In the silence, they felt the heartbeat of the universe, a gentle, ancient rhythm that seemed to whisper of worlds yet undiscovered, of secrets waiting to be revealed. Together, they were ready to uncover them. The enigmatic glow of the forgotten caverns. The days following their visit to the crystalline lake were filled with a renewed energy, a shared determination to understand the mysterious connections between their worlds. Elira, with her knowledge of Syrian phenomena, and Jonathan, with his earthbound intuition and curiosity, made an unexpectedly perfect team. Their bond grew deeper with each discovery, as if some invisible thread was pulling them towards something monumental. One evening, as they pored over ancient maps and Earth's rare geological anomalies, Elira leaned in, her voice low with excitement. "Jonathan, I think I may have found something important. It's not just the lake, it's a part of something larger. There are ancient caves beneath the valley, caverns that resonate with the same energy as the crystal sea. If my research is correct, these caves might hold the answers we're searching for." Jonathan's heart raced as he took in her words. "How do you know?" She unfolded a worn piece of parchment, an artifact she'd found during her research. The map was covered in Syrian script, along with symbols he didn't recognize. "I found this in an archive of interplanetary data," she explained, tracing her fingers over a glowing line on the map. "These symbols indicate energy fields and suggest the existence of something akin to the crystal sea within these caves." Jonathan studied the symbols, his pulse quickening. "So, if we go into these caves, we might find the source of the lake's energy." Elira nodded, her expression resolute. "If the crystal sea acts as a bridge, as we've suspected, then these caves might be the gate that connects our worlds." Their plan set, they gathered supplies and equipment before setting off early the next morning. Elira had arranged for a specialized vehicle designed for rough terrains, one that glided over obstacles and adjusted automatically to changes in landscape. They traveled in silence, both filled with anticipation as they made their way back to the valley, where the lake's crystalline glow shimmered faintly in the dawn light. They parked near the lake's edge and hiked through dense forest until they reached the mouth of a cave nestled between two sheer cliffs. The entrance was narrow, almost hidden by overgrowth, and a faint hum seemed to emanate from within, as if the cave itself was alive, calling to them. Allure took a deep breath, her silver eyes gleaming with determination. "Are you ready?" Jonathan nodded, his heart pounding. "Let's do this." They switched on their headlamps and stepped into the darkness. The air inside was cool, carrying the damp, earthy scent of ancient stone. The walls glistened with tiny crystals that reflected their lights, casting faint, flickering shadows as they moved deeper into the cave. The faint hum grew louder, vibrating through the ground and resonating in their bones, a strange yet soothing energy guiding them onward. After a few minutes, the narrow tunnel opened into a vast chamber. Jonathan stopped, awestruck. The cavern was enormous, its ceiling disappearing into shadows above. Massive crystal formations erupted from the floor, walls, and ceiling, some as tall as buildings, glowing with a soft, otherworldly light. The crystals pulsed in unison, as if breathing in harmony with some ancient rhythm. Allure's map had hinted at something grand, but this was beyond anything they'd imagined. "This is incredible," Jonathan whispered, his voice echoing softly. Allure's gaze was transfixed, a reverent awe in her expression. "It's like the crystal sea, but more powerful. This chamber is alive with energy." As they walked deeper into the cavern, Allure pulled out a small device from her pack, one Jonathan had seen her use to measure energy fields back at the lake. She held it up, and it began to glow, emitting a faint hum that harmonized with the rhythm of the crystals. "This device is calibrated to detect interdimensional energy," she explained. "On Xyra, we use it to locate places where our planet's energy fields intersect with other worlds. This reading, it's like nothing I've seen before." Jonathan watched the device as it pulsed with a soft blue light, matching the glow of the crystals. "Do you think these caverns could be a gateway?" Allure's gaze was intense. "I do. The crystal sea was a bridge, but these caverns, they feel like the origin point, like a heart connecting everything." They wandered deeper into the chamber, where the crystal formations grew denser, their light illuminating strange carvings etched into the walls. Jonathan noticed symbols similar to those on Allure's map, intricate designs that spiraled and looped, forming patterns that seemed to shift and move as he stared. "These markings," he murmured, tracing one with his fingers. "What do they mean?" Allure stepped closer, studying the symbols with a frown. "On Xyra, we call these ancient marks glyphs of unity. They're part of our oldest language, used to represent harmony between worlds. They suggest that this cavern was once a place where different realms converged." Jonathan felt a thrill run through him. So this isn't just a cavern, it's a nexus, a point where our worlds overlap. Allure nodded, her expression resolute. "Exactly. This place was meant to be a connection, a pathway for those who seek knowledge beyond their world." They continued their exploration, drawn to a central formation, a massive crystal structure that towered above them, glowing with a light so bright it cast shadows even in the dim cavern. As they approached, Allure's device pulsed faster, emitting a low hum that seemed to resonate with the crystal. Jonathan reached out, his hand hovering over the crystal's surface. "Do you feel that?" Allure nodded, her voice hushed. "The energy is strongest here. This crystal, it might be the core of the cavern's power." Before he could second-guess himself, Jonathan touched the crystal. Instantly, a surge of energy shot through him, a warmth that spread from his fingertips to the very core of his being. The cavern seemed to fade, replaced by a series of vivid images flashing behind his eyes. A towering mountain bathed in light, an endless ocean under a sky with twin suns, a landscape dotted with strange plants and floating structures. Each image felt real, like a memory he'd somehow forgotten. He gasped, pulling his hand back, and the visions faded. Allure was watching him, her expression a mix of concern and wonder. "Did you see something?" she asked, her voice gentle. Jonathan nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "I saw places I've never been, places that don't exist on Earth. It was like I was living in another world." Allure's gaze softened with understanding. "You were seeing Syra. This crystal, it's a conduit for memories, for fragments of our worlds woven together in this cavern. It's showing us what connects us." They stood in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, until Allure reached out, her hand finding his. "Jonathan, I believe that this place is not just a gateway. It's a part of a larger network of connections between worlds. These caverns, the lake, the crystal sea, they're all part of something ancient, something that links us all, and I think we're meant to protect it, to understand it." He looked into her silver eyes, filled with a determination that mirrored his own. "Then let's do it. Whatever it takes." Together, they knelt beside the crystal, hands joined, feeling the energy pulse through them. In that moment, Jonathan knew that his life had irrevocably changed. He was no longer just an architect from Neoterra, and Allure was more than just a visitor from another world. Together, they were guardians of something profound, a mystery that spanned worlds and time. As they prepared to leave, Allure turned back, a look of quiet reverence on her face. "This place, it's a gift, Jonathan. A piece of both our worlds, a reminder of what we can create when we come together." He nodded, feeling the weight of her words. They made their way back through the cavern, each step a reminder of the journey they had begun, a journey that had led them not just to the depths of the earth, but to the very heart of the universe's mysteries. Outside, the sky had darkened to twilight, the stars just beginning to appear, casting a soft glow over the valley. Jonathan looked up, feeling a sense of peace and purpose he had never known. With Allure by his side, the mysteries of the universe no longer felt distant or unattainable. Together, they were a part of something grand, something eternal. And as they walked back to the lake, hand in hand, Jonathan knew that whatever the future held, whatever dangers, discoveries, or wonders awaited them, they would face it together.